Let's try this again. Good morning. It's Friday. Technology sucks. Trying to get sometimes the microphones and everything to work, and nothing has been touched, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work sometimes. And I don't know why. So we'll wait and see. Guys, gotta tell me if this is working this time and if you can actually hear me. If not, I'm gonna throw things. Throw things across the room. Yay! You guys can hear me. I'm toasty now from all that drama. Yeah, so they tell you when you're creating content. Morning, honey. Mr. Josh Ick is in the house. They tell you to let the live sit for a little bit so people are notified. But I find when I do that, my audio doesn't work. So we're not going to let it sit anymore. Sorry. Well, good morning, Kari the Mortician. This is where you ask me questions about the funeral business. We should do that one day. I should ask you questions and have you answer and see how much you guys have been paying attention. So I was telling you when I tried to do the first video, little different setup, had a huge flood here. Mr. Josh came over and ripped out all the carpet, all the padding. 900 square feet are getting redone next week. So got a new little not so cozy office space here for the time being. Always switching it up. Welcome, welcome. It is Friday. Yeah, JW, I will talk about that. I got fired up talking about that with somebody the other day. It is Friday. So next week is my last week of teaching for this semester for the mortuary school. That has been super fun and a huge education to learn how to do all of that this semester. So I've been really excited about that. I have something kind of in the works. It's a long haul out. Might not be till 2025, but starting to work on something, and I'm hoping it would involve all of you. Everybody would have an opportunity to be part of it. Hoping it becomes something. So I'm hoping. Going to answer that first question that someone had submitted. So let me get to Todd had asked, I know you're busy. I appreciate your response. I've mentioned I had a career as a nurse for many, many years and retired. I have contacted a mortuary school to discuss enrollment. I can study online because of my other education. What is your opinion on this? And have you had any knowledge of other retired nurses becoming funeral directors and embalmers later in life? This is a super common thing for nursing to transition to funeral directing or funeral directing to transition to nursing. Just in, I think, my mortuary class that I'm teaching, like 20-30% are former CNAs and some type of a nursing degree. It is a super common transition. You're dealing with heightened emotions, heightened situations, working with families, working with the bodies, working with the, living as a nurse, but then they may die. So you're working with a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, a lot is different, but there's a good base knowledge between the two. So it is super, super common. Studying online. I'm a big fan of in-person. The main reason is because of the connections you get with your fellow classmates. In between classes, you're staying together, you're talking. When you're online, you don't have that connections. You're not building the relationships as much. To me, the relationships are more important, what I got out of mortuary school, than almost the education. I have people across the country I can connect with that were in my class, and friends to this day I can text any hour, day or night about things. And that to me is a huge benefit of building those relationships in person. Online schooling, great, but you need a lot of hands-on. So you have to get a really good apprenticeship, a really good, hands-on workplace scenario that is going to teach you a lot hands-on that you're not getting in the online program. So there's pros and cons to both. I understand that, especially as a second career, it's kind of hard to uproot yourself to go off to school if it is outside of your area, if you have a family and you have a work and you have all this stuff back home. I get that that's hard. It's also hard doing school online with this full class load plus working plus having a family and everything. It's hard. It's hard no matter what to go to school and to immerse your life when you also have to be working and just keeping up with everyday stuff. Oh, Amanda, my fiance passed away from cancer 4 weeks ago. I am so sorry. Big hugs to you. I wish I could give you a little hug. I hope that everything went smoothly with the funeral home and that you were able to be a part of everything with his family and such. So this is gonna get me riled and infuriate me, so much so, but it is a relevant discussion now. Even a medical professional recently, a doctor, told someone they had to be cremated because they have AIDS or are HIV positive. What ignorance is that? This is not 1987 where, it's scary and it's all questionable and new. But we also saw this ignorance and lack of information a few years ago with COVID, that there were funeral directors and medical professionals who said, don't touch the bodies, get them burned as quick as you can. And they would only do cremation if someone died of COVID. That was a huge time of fear in the world and huge unknowns. And I think that was how it was back when, we first saw the outbreak of AIDS and it becoming a thing in America, especially. But this is 2023. The virus can be inactive with medication. You can have the disease without passing it on to someone even. Like, why would a medical professional ever in 2023 say to someone that they have to be cremated because they have AIDS? Oh my God. No. There is no truth to this. This is terrible. So spread the word. No. Oh, Lori. Carol. Oh my gosh, Carol. So I'm going to work my way down. Hey, Jack. I still need to come visit you. Carol, I'm sorry I haven't watched your challenge. My uncle passed away last week. Big hugs too. Like, how many hugs can I give out today, guys? I wish I could give lots of them. A lot of loss this last recent. Lori, my sister died in a car wreck. What would cause her neck to look distended on one side and for her hands to look very dark? So her hands probably, car wreck, sudden death. If she died right away, they're going to lock up possibly. They're going to darken. The tissue in the hands darkens pretty quickly. They dehydrate. If she was in a cooler at the medical examiner, then had an autopsy, then went back in the cooler, then went to the funeral home, it was embalmed, the hands darken pretty quickly for several different reasons, but for some reason, especially with accidents and autopsies and stuff, they darken. Sometimes because people are fingerprinted when they go to the medical examiner. Maybe they didn't wash all the residue off, from the ink, and maybe some of that was still there. Her neck, so when an autopsy is done, often the tongue is taken. The bones in here sometimes are not quite there. So you have to rebuild out the neck. And sometimes maybe it can be wrong. Her neck may have been broken, so it may have swollen out to one side. If she had lived, she may have gotten swelling in her tissue from the trauma. Even if she lived for a minute or two, your body responds quickly. You get bruising and swollen tissue and things pretty darn quickly that we then see in the viewing process. Hi, Joe Milo. Thank you. My aunt was just here from Minneapolis. My mom grew up in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I need to come up there very soon and visit them. Peeps from Great Britain was Paul. So this guy, Paul, must be like a prominent, is he a sporting person or prominent figure? Carol, did I get your message? Which message, Carol? Is it one of my ones you want me to answer? My uncle died of COVID, and we were told not to touch him because he still tested positive, even though he was gone. COVID is active long after a person dies. So yes, it can be if it's on their body, but you disinfect their body and it's passed by the air that comes out. And so if you're not moving the body around, it's not coming out at you. So you can disinfect the tissue and everything. What differences have you seen between funeral practices in Europe and other foreign countries in the US? Is it mostly religious or something else? We use vaults, which is a huge difference I see that doesn't happen over there. There are some countries that don't really view. They bury, they're in coffins. Coffins are more prominent there as well than caskets. We use a lot of caskets, but the viewing is a little different. Sometimes it's just primarily the immediate family. Some have days of viewing, like an Irish wake. So it depends on the country and area and everything. Lori, thank you for asking, though. Whether she passed 10 years ago or last week, that's still a very painful thing for you. It doesn't diminish the impact of the loss on your life. That just is never going to change. Good morning, Charlie. And then, hey, Pat. So I have a question. As a pharmacist, I am intrigued when you and other embalmers talk about the medications in the deceased body and how they interact with the embalming chemicals. Do you have a resource you could recommend that could give me more information about this topic? I'm particularly interested in the interaction with chemomeds and also blood thinners. This is a great question. When we receive a body into our care, we don't know what they're taking for the most part. We might know if they had cancer or not, but it doesn't mean we know what medications they were on. So we have to embalm the best way we can and see how the body reacts. However, you could walk away, come back a couple hours later, and it seem as if you didn't even embalm because whatever medications or things that were in their body or their treatments neutralize the embalming chemicals. So then we can also topically treat the tissue. We can embalm more and put more fluid in. So there are different things we can do, but we really don't know until we go through the process how the body's going to react. And we don't know specific medications people are on. Now, blood thinners, they may be on blood thinners, but blood still coagulates when someone dies. It just clots up. So the blood thinners isn't, going to affect it a lot, and they prevent some of the clotting that happens before a person dies, but it's not going to affect as much after. But there's no one set resource on this. I'll see if I can find anything that there might be written up or something on it, though, to share. Jennifer, awesome. In June, I'm supposed to go to community college to be an EMT. That's amazing. Jack says, and Jack is, are you a junior now, Jack, in high school? How old are you now? And has worked at a funeral home for like ever, his family funeral home down in Knoxville. You're in Knoxville? I'm trying to recall a lot of information this morning. It says, I feel like every area has your common funeral and families tend to always go with the same casket interval. Is that the case in Michigan? We are literally all over the board. I mean, we were pretty vanilla where we are here in terms of, we're really traditional still in some ways, but then we also do things a little backwards where we do the burial first sometimes, and then they go do a memorial service on their own. They may do everything in one day, like a viewing for an hour, then a funeral, then luncheon, and then a burial. So the order of things changes over time, and people try and make it as most convenient for them and for everybody that's attending so they can spend as much time as they can with them. But some of it also just depends. Burial vault and casket, I wouldn't say we have any standards that are here. People are kind of all over the place. They want something economical. They want something that, fits their budget, which everybody's budget is so low right now with the world. But, there was a huge article on Sunday morning, is it with Jane Pauley, about Titan caskets. And this has become a huge discussion because they've kind of come in and said, in an aggressive way, funeral homes try and take too much from you, order from us. I get the stance, but you don't need to be a jerk about it, like coming in and doing that. Like, why not promote working alongside funeral directors, working alongside funeral homes, rather than taking a negative stance, putting everybody on the defense and creating a bad relationship situation off the bat. I mean, a funeral home's not going to want to work with you if you are bad-mouthing funeral homes. It just doesn't make sense. So, and we had a family this week ordered a Titan casket. It's beautiful. The delivery wasn't too excited about that. They brought a ton of shipping material. It was all boxed up. So then we have to get rid of all this. We could have made them take that part of it away, but didn't. So that is one thing so when you as a funeral home, here's the rights. Okay, let's talk about those. You can order a casket from anywhere. As long as it fits in the vault, it can be used. It needs to be delivered during business hours, just like any other casket company delivers. If other casket companies don't leave their packing material and take it, that is what you may ask of the delivering company. And sometimes these are not even casket companies delivering, they're a third-party shipping, which means they might not even know how to unload and do everything with like a church truck and such to deliver a casket. So sometimes that's challenging because we have to make sure we have additional staff there to help them if they don't know what they're doing to unload a casket. There are some challenges. There are beautiful caskets, very affordable caskets you can order. I am not against it at all. My only concern is that I don't know their delivery timeline. I want to make sure it arrives in time and looking nice, and that I have time to order something else just in case there's a problem. That is my only concern, is that everything goes smoothly for the family. When I'm kind of controlling all the parts, I know that then it's on me if it doesn't. So maybe that's the control freak in me, but it always concerns me if somebody brings it from somewhere else or orders it from somewhere else, that it's still going to come back on me as it being wrong or damaged or whatever from the public viewpoint. So I want to make sure it's right for the family, and I want them to be happy, whether they order it from somewhere else or from me or from what, if they make it themselves, that's great. I'm not worried about that. The terrible business person in me is not worried about the revenue from it. I just want to make sure that event goes smoothly. So that's all. Paul O'Grady was a famous comedian and a big loved ambassador for Battersea dogs. And okay. Hey, Julie. Yay. Thank you for jumping on. So I'm going to read Julie's question since I know that she's here. She's a nervous mom reaching out. She's trying to understand her daughter's interest in wanting to become a mortician. You are not the only parent who has reached out to me. I've had many reach out and say, my child wants to go into this. How can I support them? What concerns should I have for them going into this business? They live in San Diego, raise kids in Chicago, and raise kids in Chicago and are in San Diego now. But they all want to come back to the Midwest. 2 are at Western Michigan, which is my neck of the woods. And 1 wants to go to Wayne State and came up with this idea recently. She said no experience. She hasn't worked at a funeral home, nor does she pick up the phone to call one. So here are my concerns, is what Julie's saying. I'm hoping I can shed light on this situation, maybe some guidance. Many of the schools have a 2-year program for morticians, and I was told this is all you need. Have you also been told that the industry is growing only 8% in the next 10 years? And also have heard they want to stay in the back and the pay is about $40,000. Education is going to cost about $50,000 plus room and board, which is a lot of money. So she struggled with some mental along the way? Is this going to be a factor? So a lot of concerns. These are great, great questions. If someone has never worked in a funeral home, do not go to mortuary school. If you have no literal knowledge of a dead body or what happens at a funeral home, do not go to mortuary school until you get a little exposure. Why would you invest in a career that you have not ever been exposed to? When you go to a funeral and you have a warm and fuzzy moment and you think, gosh, I want to give this warm and fuzzy to everybody, you're experiencing about 4%, maybe less, of what an actual funeral director does. Truly. You're not seeing all the crap we got to do behind the scenes with the bodies and without the bodies. You're not seeing the 27 phone calls I make a day, the price shopping phone calls we take, the ordering of supplies, the cleaning of the toilet, then working with the bodies and running around and cleaning cars and mowing lawns and doing all this. It is a wonderful, wonderful, noble feeling to want to help people in one of their hardest moments. If you have no knowledge of what that truly, truly entails, do not invest the money until you do. Get a job, working weekends, working evenings at a funeral home, working for a removal company, working for a cemetery, work within some part of the industry to get some exposure. Find that out before you go to school. Because we hate for somebody to go to school, drop out after a year, or get their license, and then go to work and realize that this is not at all what they thought it is. School doesn't prepare you fully for the everyday and for what you're really doing. Yes, income-wise, it's all across the board. You could go get a job right now making 80, 90 right out of school. There are people desperate for mortuary school people. They need apprentices, they need licensed, they need people. You have to move. This is not a career where you can just stay in one place, go to school, and expect there to be a job there. There's about 19,000 to 20,000 mortuaries or funeral homes in the country. The turnover of a funeral director, people hopefully have a career. They're there for 40 plus years. They're not leaving anytime soon. So there's not job openings just popping up all over the place. It's also hard to get apprenticeships for that same reason. There's not just an extra $40,000, $50,000 salary spot waiting to be open at every funeral home. If they're fully staffed, they're fully staffed. And they need to have the revenue or extra funds there to pay somebody. So then if you really beg them for a job and they give you a job and they don't pay you a lot, then you're complaining that you're not getting paid a lot as a position. So it's a tricky. So there's a lot of good openings for funeral directors, for apprenticeships, for students. It's just connecting with them and moving to where they are in a lot of ways. So I think these are great questions, Julie. The mental side of it, it just depends what you're doing and where you're at. I don't get caught up in the emotions of the job. A lot of people don't. It's just part of having the gene, I think, to do this job. There's a lot of jobs I think I would be highly emotional doing and not doing this job. What I get fired up or get emotional about is coworkers and the dramas of just the workplace, not so much the families or the deceased. Maybe that's cold, but it's what you build up. You build up the thick skin. You learn how to flip the switch to turn on your alternate part of you. So I would not be as concerned with someone with, having depression, things going in. This might be therapeutic for somebody that way, that they're helping and they're bringing peace and things to other people. It's per person. Everything is situational per person, because you could have someone completely normal mentally go in and this kind of break them, but you could also have the reverse. So I think you've got two sides of a coin with it. Last question that had been submitted that I have: if a body is exhumed for a second autopsy or other medical analysis, does the funeral director come behind and reset the features, reclothe the body before reburial? For instance, Lee Harvey Oswald was exhumed so that authorities confirmed it was actually him. They opened his mouth to see if his teeth matched his dental records. However, I wonder if they just left his mouth open when he was returned to his grave. I think some of that is going to be participation from the family. Are they going to bring in new clothing to put on? I can't imagine they're just going to take a body, mouth open or whatever, and put him back in the casket and put him back in the ground. I would imagine possibly a new casket, new clothing, depending on who's participating. When it's an exhumation, there may not even be family around. That's part of it if it's from years and years and years ago. I think it'll just really depend on the situation. The mouth, I can't imagine would be, like with the dental, you're going to do an x-ray. You're not just going to go and look at the mouth. I would expect you would take an x-ray to see if it matched his x-rays. So to me, that seems a little odd, but I think there's a lot to all of that. It's a great question. I don't for sure 100% know all the answer to that. I can only give you my guesses. What about if someone has received radiation just before they passed? Is that a problem for you? So these are great questions. Steve's in tech. Happy anniversary this last week to you and Gail. So if someone has been treated with radiation, just the treatment of radiation is not such a big, but if they put in radioactive beads, things like that are still dispersing radiation, we do have to wait for the half-life of radiation to pass before we can cremate or expose employees if it is that type of a situation. Just standard radiation treatment is not concerning. It's when you have radioactive things put into the deceased, then we have to look at that. James, that's a great question. Is there a chemical available that can neutralize any medical or other drug that would help with embalming? There's not right now. So maybe it's in the works. Maybe some of the companies are working on a neutralizer, but we are walking medicine cabinets in our society. There are so many pharmaceuticals in use every day in human bodies. It's disgusting. I want to remind you guys I visited the water treatment facility to see if they could find formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde in the water after I had gone through the treatment plant. And they tested in parts per trillion. There was no formaldehyde, no glutaraldehyde, none of that. But what did show was medications that we are taking. And as we spit out our toothpaste in the morning, as we go to the bathroom, as we vomit, as we cut ourselves and wash it down the drain, all of those medications are going into the water sources, and those are seen at parts per trillion. Hormones, all of it, because we are walking medicine cabinets. So there is no way to know what someone is taking, what they have been taking, how it has changed their chemical makeup of their body forever. It is a quite frightening whole thing out there. What was the idea behind mausoleums? Were they primarily for the richer people? Do cemeteries still use them? Yes, they do. They're also a huge space saver. They go up. When we have less land, we build up. There are it's an Asian country. I don't know if it was China or Japan. I can't remember. And they have condominium style buildings that are cemeteries, essentially, for cremated remains and such, that you then go in, you go to floor 27 to go visit your mom, because they don't have the land space. They've built up just like a mausoleum and created a solution to lesser space available. It's pretty genius. I think it's a great idea. When I was in England, they talked about how there was less and less burial space available. It's just an island, or not an island, but it's just a small space. So they're going to run out of room. And I said, what about mausoleums? And they're like, yeah, we're starting to look into them. Starting. So that blew my mind that this was just now becoming a discussion there. I was like, why weren't these done like 50 years ago? Foreshadowing when they've been around for a long, long time. Why didn't they do this? Yes, it is a huge cost. A lot of mausoleum spaces that you go visit, they couldn't replicate them now. It would be so costly, it would be ridiculous. But 100 years ago when they built them, it wasn't as costly of an endeavor as it would be now, which is crazy. Morning, Matt. I have unsupported as well. If someone is going to be cremated, but beforehand the body will be viewed, you have to embalm. And can you still cremate? Yes, if the funeral home requires they are embalmed for a public viewing, then they will, yes, explain to you that needs to happen and get your authorization. If it's just like a family ID view quick before cremation, then most funeral homes will not require it unless you're like, well, we need to wait a week or two before somebody comes to town or something like that. Then yes, they're going to ask your permission for embalming. So it's going to depend on some of the other parts of that situation. And yes, you can be cremated whether you've been embalmed or not. What else was I going to tell you? I got these things from Shein. They're kind of creeping people out. Hello. They're like $2 from Shein. I'm going to try and see if I can use these for some restorative, like to glue a mouth and then wax it. This one's almost like a child's mouth. Yesterday we were playing. But I think because they're so pliable, you could easily glue that. Practice lip closure, practice maybe a little wax work, and then cosmetizing the lips and finding the lip lines. Because when you cosmetize, you don't just paint the whole lip. Look at anybody with lipstick. You don't paint the whole lip. We have what's called a weather line, where your lips are darker or lighter in a certain area. And your lips taper in. They don't come out to this perfect point. They taper in. So you wouldn't just take this and cosmetize all of the lip area. You have to taper off your color. So I'm going to see if these work, and then I can do some videos about that. I'm going to try and do that. Try. Emptying my office. I found all sorts of things like this is made from like a plastic resin or something. I don't even know what it's made from. I had forgotten I had it. I had gotten it to like crush so that I could do a restorative, but because of the material, I really think if I tried to smash this, it's going to be like little shards, and it's not going to break like a skull would. So sadly, I don't think I'm going to do it. Look how heart-like that really is on the nasal cavity. It's pretty crazy. Now more likely to be outsourced. Is embalming now more likely to be outsourced to embalming companies? Do you mean like a trade embalming company? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You're welcome, Lori, of course. Do you remove medical devices for a typical embalming or just cremation? Just cremation. The only things we would remove for embalming, we're going to take off a colostomy bag, and we're going to suture that area up. We're going to take off we're going to take catheters out. We're going to take off medical devices like that are still on the person. If someone had in a chest tube, we're going to remove that, and we're going to suture that up. So things of that nature, we take off and we close those holes. Those are the kind of things we would remove. Yeah, Mara, we heard all about that yesterday. That people were making a lot of jokes at work about it, but they are kind of nice little things. I have a whole head, but God knows where that is. I literally had to empty my whole office is in another space, stuffed in the laundry room. So as I put everything back in my office, I'm sure I'm going to find some real good trinket things that I didn't even know I still had. Okay, let's see. One more good question. How many days after embalming does body last before showing changes? It could be about an hour after. There's no set time frame. No set time frame. Iowa Health Code requires embalming if there is a public viewing or there must be a burial with so many hours, I believe before 48 hours have passed. That's no state requires that a body. There's no law in any state that requires a body has to be embalmed. But based on your service choices and the length of time, embalming might be required. But a funeral home may just require for their own rules that someone is embalmed for scenarios. So know your laws. That's what this whole channel, know your rights, know your laws, good, bad, and indifferent. Know what they are so you feel empowered and you know your rights. Don't go in arguing with somebody, but if you don't believe what they're telling you, step back, look into it, ask questions, call the state, call the, like Michigan Funeral Directors Association, call the State Board of Licensing, ask questions, call a different funeral home and ask questions if you're not comfortable with what is happening. Don't regret something later because you didn't follow your gut. Your gut works for a reason. It's intuition. It's built into you. Follow your gut. It's good to do. Are there any other professions you would feel this passionate about? It's a good question, Mo. I think there's a lot of things, if I got into it, I would feel passionate about it. What I love about this business is that every day can be a little different. You work with every dynamic, every socioeconomic status, every race, every religion, every subculture group, like, motorcyclists and quilters and, all of these hobby type groups that have some core clubs and things built around their hobbies. I love that. I love learning about different things. I love getting brief knowledge and education about different things. And that's what I get to do with this business. Then on this side of it, and this whole endeavor has allowed me to connect with some of the most amazing humans across the world that I never would have connected with. Never, if I didn't have this platform, would I have ever gone to England to work at a funeral home or gone to St. Louis and met some of the friends that I now have from there. Never would I have ever done some of the things. And this has given me a unique education just for myself, life experiences I never would have had. It's just been amazing. And for my kids, like my daughter, I'm creating a Jeopardy board to help my students study for our class next week. My daughter this morning is looking up cremation questions so she can help me come up with questions for them. It is reading to me about, Mom, do you know how many cups of cremated remains come from an average size adult? Mom, do you know this? Mom, do you know that? What child talks like that for the most part? But my kids are going to learn that death is normal and talking about it can be normal and asking questions can be normal. And I love that for them. Just like their dad teaches them about business and working with money and investing in companies and property and all these things. Like they're getting a lot of great knowledge based on our jobs and what we do. And I think some people don't talk to their kids about what they do because they don't think their kids can understand or mentally, emotionally get all of it. But it's just part of it. I love that part of it. So hello in Ireland. I love Ireland. It's one of my eyes. Italy, Ireland, Iceland. The 3 eyes are coming up. I'm going to go to them at some point. So last question I'm going to do from ATM. Do you have any experience with Amish or Mennonites? Do they embalm? I'm going to try one funeral director who's near me. He's the guy who also has the hearse motorcycle. I think I'm going to post that video again just so everybody can see it again. But he does quite a few Amish funerals. I've been to an Amish funeral because we had friends that are Amish. I've been to Amish weddings, funerals, and such. Yes, they embalmed. Everything they held right at a home, though. Someone hosts it in their barn at their home, just like they do church. Church can rotate between all the homes. So they have the chairs, they have the space, they have everything at their homes to host huge groups of people because it rotates and they're used to feeding huge groups and gathering huge groups. And then they would take the person to the cemetery, and you meet at the cemetery so that you can be the licensed person and oversee. It's going to be different with every community. It's not like a blanketed, this is what we do, just like with Catholics. Some Catholic churches, you meet at the funeral home, have a last viewing, and get to the church right when the mass is starting. Some you meet at the church. Sometimes you can have viewing at the church. Sometimes you can't. There's all these variables, but yeah. Thanks, Joe Milo. Hit the like button to support Kari's channel. I never say that, and I need to get into that. That's that whole like YouTube. Subscribe, like, and comment, and share with a friend if you like a video. Yeah, I forget all of that. But yeah, subscribe, guys. And if you are finding good information on any video, share it. Share it on a social media platform. Send it to a friend. You never know what someone else may need in a moment and be questioning in a moment, especially during loss or getting ready for loss, or they just want to ask somebody a question and they don't know that I exist. I can ask. Just send them my way and have them email me or something. So that is why I'm here, is to help at least a few humans in this world get through a loss, knowing what they can ask and question, and having some base knowledge of what is going to be happening when their loved one dies. So heading out. Thank you guys so much for your support. More coming on my trip to parting stones and getting my stones. They email you as your loved one is going through the process. And I took my dog and dropped him off when I went to Santa Fe 2 weeks ago. And so right now he is being formed into stones. I got that email yesterday. So the next process then is a second smoothing, and then he goes to the kiln to be fired. And we'll come back in a box looking like this, like these stones. But you never know what color they're going to be. They're all hand shaped. So pretty awesome. Pretty excited. So in a couple weeks, I'll be having an opening of my box of his stones, which is pretty crazy. So thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon, and watch for more videos. Bye.